live in the golden age of superhero films. There are so many superhero flicks coming out every year that they can't all be magnificent hits. Sometimes these films miss their marks, despite having some pretty cool special effects. Sometimes the stories just get mangled along the way, or the characters just don't translate well on screen. We've compiled a list of some characters that should never have been on the silver screen. But before we begin, float on over to that subscribe button to keep up to date with all things CBR. Come on, you know you want to.
Blah, blah, blah. All of that chit-chat's gonna get you hurt.
Oh my God.
The Joker. The Joker is one of the most iconic characters in the comic book world. On screen, he's been portrayed by legendary actors who've put their own spin on the clown Prince of Darkness. But none have been so terrifyingly wonderful as Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight. Warner Brothers had a huge dilemma on their hands when it came to the character after Heath Ledger's death. Who could ever compare to Heath? Rather than shelve him, Warner Brothers decided to include him in the new film universe, but they couldn't just rehash the same thing. Instead, they went in a completely different direction with the character. They wrote him as a glorified gangster, complete with pimpmobile, grills, and prison tattoos in Suicide Squad. It feels as if Jared Leto is trying too hard, and it shows. From his antics on set, it was clear that he was attempting a wholly original performance, but that couldn't be farther from what happened. Despite the physical differences, he is clearly trying to emulate Ledger through his voice and mannerisms, rather than make the Joker his own. The Suicide Squad script didn't do him any favors either, which is unfortunate as Leto is a fantastic actor.
Too much junk in the trunk?
Nah. Every time I put this on, somebody dies.
Deadshot. The awesome and charming Will Smith was an integral part of the 90s and early 2000s. Anything he touched turned into gold, pretty much. But as much as Will Smith can be a charismatic actor who's known worldwide for being very charming and funny, he just couldn't add any warmth to the stale Suicide Squad script. If anyone could, it should have been him. Rather than playing off of Will Smith's charm, the movie makes Deadshot out to be entirely forgettable and boring. It's telling that Deadshot is one of the main characters of the film, yet he still feels like one that's been underwritten. It's unfortunate when a great actor is underused. It's Will Smith, for crying out loud. The audience is constantly reminded that the Suicide Squad are the bad guys, although we never see them do much of anything that's really bad or villainous. Come on, DC, you've got great villains, use them. Yet the film also portrays Deadshot as a hitman with a heart of gold. This is supposed to humanize him, but it only makes you wonder how many tropes can they stuff into this movie.
When the world finds out what you can do, it's going to change everything. Our beliefs, our notions of what it means to be human, everything.
Jonathan Kent. Superman fans know that Clark Kent's father is a major component in his story growing up. His father, Jonathan Kent, is supposed to be Superman's moral compass, and like a great dad, he's supposed to be there for Clark in his time of need. When all seems lost and he needs someone to inspire him, his dad is supposed to be right by his side. At the end of the day, he ultimately represents Clark's humanity. But for some reason, Jonathan does the exact opposite in the film Man of Steel. Rather than show Clark the nobility of heroism, he constantly tells his adopted son that the world isn't ready for him, so he cannot reveal his powers. Talk about crushing the spirit. He spends the entire movie trying to convince Clark that saving others is bad for his own safety. But heroism is about risking yourself for the good of others. It's about being able to face the evil in others to hope when there is no hope left. Jonathan died in vain because he refused to let Clark reveal his powers to save him from a tornado. This depiction of the character goes against absolutely everything he represents in the comics. Why not just help your son feel comfortable in his own skin and help others?
You want to teach your kids something, teach them that. Teach them to fight. Otherwise, they might as well live in this house for the rest of their
You
lives.
still sound just like him. You sound just like Eric.
Mystique. Let's turn back time and revisit the franchise that started it all, the X-Men series. Although there are many well-known characters in the X-Men movies, we can't forget the intriguing antagonist and beautiful blue mutant Mystique. Mystique, as portrayed by Rebecca Romijn in the first X-Men trilogy, was a total badass. The same cannot be said for Jennifer Lawrence's character in the prequels. We love J-Law, but her role throughout the films have been very confusing. Her decision to join Magneto at the end of X-Men First Class made little sense within the context of her history with Xavier. She coldly decides to leave his side and join Magneto. Her childhood friend might die and she thinks this is the best time to abandon him? This makes absolutely no sense. By the time Lawrence appears in X-Men Apocalypse, it's clear that she's not invested in this gig anymore. It's really bizarre that she ends up leading the X-Men, a position normally reserved for Cyclops.
God versus man. Day versus night. Son of Krypton versus Bat of Gotham.
Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is known for being the ruthless antagonist in Superman's world. From the comic book to the cartoons to film adaptations, he's a pretty great villain, until recently at least. Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of Lex Luthor in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice is pretty much a lesson in what not to do when playing Lex Luthor. He's manic, twitchy, eccentric, and worst of all, really annoying. These tics might have worked well for Eisenberg in other roles like in The Social Network and Zombieland, but he lacks the charm, stoicism, and wit that makes Lex who he is. It's a shame, really. It feels as though this villain was severely miscast. In Batman vs. Superman, his ingenious, diabolical plot is to get Batman to fight Superman to the death. Keeping with the tone set by the rest of the terrible script, his plot backfires in the most ridiculous way possible. Batman realizes that both he and Superman's mother share the same name, which makes him somehow realize that Superman was good all along. Lex had a backup plan in Doomsday, which in itself is an extremely dangerous risk as he doesn't know what this creature is capable of or if he can control it.
This thing is from another world. My world.
Superman. There is no superhero list that would be complete without mentioning the OG comic book hero Superman. Throughout the years, the Man of Steel has been played by many actors, and most recently, the handsome Henry Cavill. The Superman universe is that of believing in the good of humanity and what good they're capable of. Henry Cavill may be wooden at times, but at the end of the day, he wasn't in charge of writing the scripts he was provided. You can't really do much as an actor if there's nothing interesting on the page, can you? Many have criticized the DC Extended Universe of being too bleak and lacking the lightheartedness that makes the Superman universe so fun. People are quick to point the finger to Superman as proof that DC needs to lighten up a bit. The optimism and wonder of Christopher Reeves is gone, replaced by grit and darkness. This is the Superman that doesn't smile. But we suppose he doesn't have much to smile about. His adopted father taught him all the wrong lessons. Clark gets reprimanded for doing the right thing, like saving his schoolmates when their bus crashes in a lake. No wonder he's such a mess, but hopefully that will change in the Justice League.
This was aged for 1,000 years. The barrels built from the wreck of Grunhill's fleet is not meant for mortal men.
Stop trying to scare us. Come on.
Thor. Within Marvel's cinematic universe, Thor has always been the least interesting character. Although he is charming, mighty, and worthy, his solo movies have been a tad bit drab. However, with a new Thor film coming out and the trailers, we are pretty excited for Thor to get a chance. Hopefully Thor Ragnarok changes all that, but for the time being he remains a boring character trapped in lackluster solo movies. That's not to say Chris Hemsworth isn't a capable actor. He does have a few funny moments, like when he asks a pet shop clerk for a horse, or when he's completely shocked when Vision hands a Mjolnir. We know Chris Hemsworth has potential, but it's the character that hinders him. Thor is just uninteresting, but he fares a lot better in the Avengers setting. The problem with the Thor films is that they take themselves a little too seriously. We understand that Thor is supposed to be a straight man in this situation, while other characters react to his strange stature as a god, but the uber seriousness of every character in Asgard makes Thor's boring status even more noticeable. Here's hoping to a much more exciting Thor film in Ragnarok.
I got one plan, and that plan requires a frickin' Quarnix battery, so figure it out! Can I get back to it?
Rocket Raccoon. Guardians of the Galaxy took Hollywood by storm. Fans of superhero movies loved this film on a whole other level. There was action, humor, and bright, colorful characters. Speaking of which, the characters are all fan favorites in their own right. One of the characters is the snappy Rocket Raccoon. And what could be funnier than a genetically modified wisecracking raccoon? Well, as it turns out, friends, there is plenty. People enjoy that he acts the opposite way one would expect a cute little raccoon to act, but subverting conventions doesn't necessarily make a great character. Although there are definitely some things we can appreciate about the character, the overall feeling we get while watching him is that he's a little corny. We can definitely sympathize with his troubled past, which is definitely the most interesting part of the character, but it doesn't make him any less annoying. Practically every line he says is so cliche that it's hard to believe he gets so much love from fans. Beyond a few heartfelt moments with Groot and Yondu, he's really a flat character. Maybe this has to do with Bradley Cooper's performance, who shouts every single one of his lines. Use your inside voice, Rocket.
Ancient Kryptonian deformity. Blood of my blood.
Doomsday. Superhero movies are known for their action and awesome special effects. Part of the reason we go see them is to see the amazing technological developments they've put into our favorite comic book movies. But sometimes they just don't work out. One of Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice's biggest mistakes was to include the CGI misstep that is Doomsday. When the first trailer revealing Doomsday was released, many fans believed that he was in a primitive form and would mutate or become more menacing throughout the movie, but that was not the case. In the comics, Doomsday was a genetically engineered monster born in prehistoric Krypton. His creator provided him with a very limited motivation: hatred and an appetite for destruction. He was Superman's most fearsome foe, and when he made his first appearance in the comics, he was the only supervillain who could actually go toe-to-toe with Superman in terms of his physical strength and his superpowers. In fact, he actually killed Superman in the Death of Superman story arc. Rather than remaining close to the character's rich source material or give him any agency or backstory, the writers reduced him to a Lex Luthor science experiment that has very little screen time. We think he deserved better, don't you?
She opened something she shouldn't have, releasing a metahuman more powerful than any we've encountered. The Enchantress.
Enchantress. When it comes to villain, we can agree that DC has some of the best in comic book history. They do terrifyingly very well. If you watch Suicide Squad, you might remember the character Enchantress. She is a witch that possessed archaeologist Dr. June Moon. Amanda Waller catches wind of the metahuman and obtains her heart so that she can control the witch. One glaring problem is that it's never explained how Dr. Moon is able to take back control of her body before Amanda Waller obtains the witch's heart. The movie's so quick to zip through each character's backstory that they forgot to patch over the obvious plot holes, which leaves us with way more questions than answers. The Enchantress is supposed to be the main villain of the movie, but she doesn't have much more going for her in terms of characterization to set her apart from Incubus. It's telling that people were not even sure who the villain of Suicide Squad actually was until the release of the movie. The marketing team didn't bother to make her a focus of any advertising, so many fans were left feeling confused.
What if I see something that I want to take and it belongs to someone else?
You will be arrested.
But what if I want it more than the person who has it?
Still illegal.
What do you think about these characters in these superhero movies? Do you agree? Are there any that you think should have been on the list? Let us know in the comments below, and of course, while you're here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and check out more awesome videos from our playlist. And if you liked our video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. As always, thanks for watching.